let's talk about what the word Lord means. The word Lord. And there's a couple reasons we need to do this. One of them is obviously there's a lot of confusion in Christianity as to what the word actually means. And that in part is due to the way translators have translated it in the scriptures. You know, Jesus Christ is called Lord, and God is called Lord. And so then what happens is there becomes confusion about, are they the same or are they different? And that's exacerbated by the fact that when many other people are called Lord, we take the Greek word Kyrios, which is translated Lord in reference to God or Jesus, and we translated something else. So what happens is, if you are reading the Greek text, and can you and I agree that the English Bible is not the God-breathed word? The English Bible is a translation. If we're reading the Greek text and going back into the Greek culture, they use the word Lord like we might use the word boss. It was just a general term that was used for many, many different situations. Yeah, was it used of God? Absolutely. He's the Lord. He's the boss. He's the ruler. He's the top guy. Was it used of Jesus Christ? Sure, he's a boss too. Was it used of slave owners? Absolutely. Did children use it of their parents? Sure they did. And I want to go into the scripture and see if we can straighten out what the word Lord means and some of the way it's used in the scripture. And then we'll be more clearly able to understand why Jesus is called Lord, because he's a boss, and why God is called Lord, because he's a boss. And frankly, do you have a boss at work? If you do, then biblically, that person would be called Lord. Or are you a boss at work? Because if that's the case, you would be called Lord. Are you a parent? Then you would be called Lord by your children. Are you a child? Then you would call your father Lord, and actually you would call your mom, which would be Kyrios, and you would call your mom Kyrie, or if you will, Lordess maybe. I don't know if there's prince and princess, is there Lord and Lordess, but there's Kyrios for the male and Kyrie for the female. So there's a very, very general usage of the word Lord here. The primary meaning, if you go to the lexicons, go to your Greek lexicons there, or Bauer, Gingrich, some of the lexicons, and you look up the word Lord, the primary meaning relates to the possession of power or authority. It has various senses: strong, authoritative, valid, ruling, from that maybe the principal thing or the essential thing, and thus obviously it shakes out into human relationships as Lord or Master. So let's go into the scripture and look at some of the different ways it's used. It's the word Kyrios, Lord, is, and by the way, Kyrios is Greek. So the Greek word Kyrios is used of someone who owns something. An owner is a lord. In Matthew chapter 20, verse 8, it says, "When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, 'Call the workers and pay them their wages.'" Now, did you hear the word Lord in there? I didn't either, but it's there. And this is part of the problem. Part of the reason there's confusion in Christendom as what does the word Lord even mean is because when it's translated in the English version, the exact same word, Lord, is translated different ways. Here in Matthew chapter 20, when evening came, the owner of the vineyard, that's the word Kyrios. He's the Lord of the vineyard. And so he's the Lord. Why is he the Lord? Because he's the owner. He's the boss. He's the one with authority. The owner of a slave was called the Lord. So John 13:16, New American Standard Version, "Truly, truly, I say to you, a slave is not greater than his master." Okay, again, do you see the word Lord in there? I don't either. We translate Kyrios, owner, we translate it master, and then when it comes to God or Jesus, we translate it Lord, and by the time we're reading the Bible in English, we say, no, the only Lord is God and Jesus, so they must be the same. No, no, no. We have to do a better job in translating and in understanding the first century culture. Here, John 13:16, truly, truly, I say to you, a slave is not greater than his kyrios, his Lord. So a slave owner was called a Lord. By the way, servants or slaves called the ones they served Lord. So in Matthew 13, verse 27, the owner's servants came to him and said, Sir, didn't you sow good seed in your field? Sir? Sir? It's the Greek word Lord. But you see, we're going to give deference to God and Jesus, and we're not going to translate this as Lord. The word Lord was just a simple, respectful address. The owner's servants came to him and said, Kyrios, Lord, didn't you sow good seed in your field? So it was a respectful form of address. It was used of any person in authority. Like here is a verse, Matthew 27:63, where the religious leaders came to Pontius Pilate. Listen to the way it's translated. Sir, these leaders said, we remember. It's the Greek word Lord. Now, the translators don't want the religious leaders calling Pontius Pilate Lord for theological reasons, but they did. It's the Greek word kyrios. So it was just a recognition that Pontius Pilate was an official with authority. That's all it was. Lord, they said, we remember that while Jesus was still alive, he said, after 3 days I'll rise again, so seal up the tomb. And of course, Pontius Pilate did. It was used, as I said, of children to parents. If you read the Greek translation of Genesis 31:35, Rachel calls her father Lord, and children were supposed to show respect to their parents. Then it's just a plain old respectful address. It's kind of like the way you or I use sir. Like if I'm driving down the road and I'm lost and I see somebody walking down the street, I roll down my window, I say, excuse me, sir, can you help me out here? Now, in British English, he'd have to be knighted or something to be called sir. But here's John 12:20. Now there were some Greeks among those who went up to the feast. They came to Philip, who was from Bethsaida, with a request. Sir, they said, we'd like to see Jesus. It's translated sir in your English Bible, but it's the Greek word Lord. So these Greeks called Philip Lord. Why? Because that's part of the semantic range of the word Lord. That's part of how the word was used. Same thing with the woman at the well. Remember the Samaritan woman at the well in John 4, and she met Jesus? She didn't know he was the Messiah yet. She was just being nice to him. And she said, Sir, you have nothing to get water with and the well is deep. It's the Greek word Lord. She just used it as a respectful form of address. Same thing with a wife to a husband, by the way. 1 Peter 3:6 says, like Sarah, who obeyed Abraham and called him her master. Called him her master, but it's the Greek word kyrios, Lord. Again, it's a respectful term of address. In Acts 25:26, it's used of the Roman emperor. And again, interestingly enough, the NIV I'm looking at here says, it translates it, His Majesty. It's the Greek word kyrios, it's Lord. And of course, in Acts chapter 10, verse 4, angels are called Lord. You remember when the angel appeared to Cornelius, and Cornelius, it says, stared at this angel in fear. What is it, Lord? He asked. He just recognized the authority that the angel had. And of course, in the Bible, God is called Lord because he's a ruler and he has authority. And Jesus Christ is called Lord because he's a ruler and he has authority. So let's not get confused about the identity of God and the identity of Jesus Christ. They are two individuals. And the fact that they're both called Lord, let's not confuse them. Let's remember that the word Lord in the Greco-Roman culture had a really wide semantic range. It was used of property owners. It was used of anyone who had authority, whether you were a child talking to your parent, a wife talking to your husband, a slave talking to your owner. It was used of anyone with rulership authority, like a Roman official or the Roman emperor. And of course, it was used of God and Jesus also. So let's understand the Greek word Lord, maybe even make some notes in our Bible about it so that we can keep it straight in our minds and understand who we're dealing with when we deal with God and Jesus, who are both Lords in our life.